Well, I'm back in the workshop in that place I live, and we got a new piece of equipment. Sandblasting cabinet. It's gonna make things a hell of a lot easier because God do I hate the old way of doing it. Yeah. Anyway, I need to make a workstation for this that holds a compressor, and the whole thing needs to be mobile so we can move it around for various projects. Let's get to it. I'll start by building two of these frames, one for the top layer here and one for a bottom shelf that'll hold the compressor. I don't know how many times I've made the mistake of doing an exterior measurement and not remembering that my material is an inch wide. So rather than being 36 by 24, I actually need to make 36-inch pieces by 22-inch pieces because I'm going to lose an inch off of each side. I'm going to take the opportunity to clean the steel now while it's in manageable pieces with the wire wheel, and I'll also double check all of my measurements because it'll make my job a hell of a lot easier when it comes to welding if I'm going to do a job. I'm not sponsored, I like that. It's good. Now that I've got all the material prepped, it's time to weld. Never have enough magnets. We'll check for square on the diagonal. 43 1/4, 43 1/4. This is pretty good to start tack welding, but I feel like I could use more magnets just so it doesn't move. And perfect. Yes, this is a bit ridiculous, but it just means that everything is going to stay in place while I do one corner at a time, leapfrogging around until I'm done, staying square the entire time. I've laid the second frame on top of the first frame because I know it needs to be the same shape, and this way I know that everything lines up correctly. Now that I've got the shelves welded up, I need to sort out how tall this thing's actually going to be. It's a little bit tall, even when I got my face down on it, so I probably want to drop it 3 or 4 inches. I got these big beefy casters for underneath, which are about 6 inches tall. So I'll take a measurement from where it is now, subtract 4 inches for the drop, and 6 inches for the caster, and that'll be our leg. 30 minus 10, 20, easy peasy. Now that I've got my legs prepped, I need to weld them to the corners. Obviously I need to keep them square, and depending on what kind of equipment and tools you got, there's a couple different ways to do this. I'll show you the quick and dirty way first, and then something a little bit more reliable. Quick and dirty first. So I've got a nice flat tabletop here with this big piece of steel, but if this angle is a little bit off and this isn't exactly square, the leg may not sit perfectly square. So what I'll do is put a tiny little tack weld and then check my square, and I'll be able to bend it just a little bit before I send it home. So that first way wasn't too bad, but you gotta finesse and trust your eye a little bit when it comes to the squaring. For the rest of the corners, I'm gonna use these machine offcut pieces that are just scrap from a steel yard. I'll set my leg in. I'm putting them on the exterior, and I can see that my gaps are the same all the way around. So I know I'm square this way, and I also know I'm pretty square this way. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. Good. Good. Now we take the second frame, same orientation, and I'll use these corner clamps just to make sure I'm keeping 90 this direction.
Home to the mountain.
Now we just need to attach our casters. You can see I need a little bit more real estate here, so I'm going to use this strapping, cut some plates for the bottom, and then weld all this together. Got my plates done, and while in the past I probably would have stuck them right in the corner and just welded along that edge, which isn't all that strong, and honestly there's a little bit of wobble to it. So let me show you a trick that Jimmy and I used to use at the old shop. We turn the whole thing as if it's going to sit on the floor, and then we put the plates right underneath the corners with a little bit of overhang. And with the plates under the four corners, it basically settles itself exactly where it wants to be, most level and flat. It also makes it a hell of a lot easier for me to weld right around this edge and on the inside. Now that we know that everything is flat, I can turn it back over and weld the casters on. Whoop. These things usually come with a zinc plating on the outside, and while you can absolutely weld through this, I'm not going to say it's smart, but if you do it, wear a mask, proper ventilation, whatever the hell you got to do, don't breathe in this stuff. It's horrible. Now we just got to make a top and bottom shelf that'll sit nicely inside this angle iron out of soft steel or plywood. Satisfactory. The table's done. Just need some muscle to help me get this over here. Yoy! Yeah, I think that'll do. You want to give it a shot?
It's a little tall.
I can fix that. Small modification, but I'm gonna need your shoes. Now for the feet. Can you see it? Okay, watch. now that I know this works, what I need to do is get a positive stop for when it's in the up position, because the worst thing that could happen is this moves a little bit and slams shut, the whole thing drops. That would be bad. So I have an idea. Pretty much just making another hinge like I did in the front, only this time I found round stock that fits in our pipe. So, you know, in a pinch, you could do the bolt thing, but maybe look a little longer next time. Your choice. My little backstop works really well, but when I put it down and fold this up, it hits, which I hate. But I'm building in space, so I'm gonna go ahead and modify the back side of this tube, because if I cut a little notch out here, when this goes up, any structural integrity that might have been lost is gonna be covered by this angle iron. I basically planned it that way. Sort of. Now that this is working correctly, I'm going to trim back this angle iron because I knew something was probably going to change up here, which is why I didn't weld it all the way to the front. So trim that back, then everything should slide into place, and then I'll probably end up adding a catch just so this sits nicely when it's flipped up, in case it ever wants to come down while it's moving. Just going to use some of the cutoffs from the rest of the project and build up this space to create a new catch for our foot. Easy peasy. I've got a couple more small modifications to make, but honestly, I just want to see if it works, so I'm going to flip it over and test it. Oh, she's got gravity! I wish I could say I planned this, but that little foot brake actually ends up being a really nice pull tab. There's your problem. So see, what happened was I measured from the ground to the table and I made this that height, but in actuality I needed to account for the 1 inch of angle iron. So I missed it, which is unfortunate. Luckily it's not a huge fix. I just have to trim these back, re-weld it, should work properly. Let's do that. Much better. All right, last thing I need to do is put a positive stop for when it's all the way out. Super easy. I'm just gonna take it all the way out until I want it to stop. Yeah, right there feels good. All right, I'm gonna use this last brace and just put a couple of pins on the side here and a little flag that'll catch it. And it should let everything else return, but stop once it hits this pin. In theory. That ain't going nowhere. This is really just to protect it from the elements because it's probably going to live outside. Nope. I think it's done.
Looks good.
Thank you.
Do I get my shoes back now?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.